Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to the Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Today, our guest is James. James, how are you doing today?
Good, Qasim. How are you? I got the memo. We both got the orange on today. So
Yeah, a good synergy. Well, James, let us know where you live and what you do.
yeah, absolutely. So my name is James Colistra. I'm the founder of Wonderfish, and what we do is we essentially operate like a PR agency, but we focus really on getting founders and CEOs on ideal podcasts like this one, for example. But we get founders and CEOs on podcasts as guests, and then we leverage the content to build their own audience and then build their pipeline, essentially, what we do.
Awesome. That's great. So, in this case, what are your core responsibilities? Because a founder may have a lot of responsibilities. So, what hats you are wearing at this point?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty much doing everything, to be honest with you. So, I'm the sales guy, I'm the marketing guy, I'm recording. I'm creating processes, though. I love the state of technology now where you have technology so interoperable, where I think I said that word right, but it works together essentially. Interoperable. I'm going to try to say it again and I'm going to botch it. But you know what I'm talking about, where I'm using HubSpot, but then I have other tools that sync with that, and I'm trying to get everything to work as like a system, because what I would love to do is eventually bring on like some sort of virtual assistant or someone to kind of help me with just like some of the bookings, because a big part of what I'm doing is coordinating schedules and things of that nature, that some of it is a little bit more like admin process. I'm still early on where I'm getting everything together and getting it in the right spot where I can eventually pass some of the stuff off. But yeah, I'm pretty much doing everything. I'm doing the bookings. I'm preparing the guests for the shows. That's a big part of what I do. So a lot of these people that I'm working with, they might be successful. Typically, they're all successful founders, but a lot of them have either only been on a few podcasts, or some of them have never been on a podcast, and it could be a nerve-wracking thing. So what I do is I try to make them feel as comfortable as possible going into it, and I'll give them everything from like prep documents about that show to potential questions that the interviewer might ask. And then if they want, what I like to do is sit down with them and actually throw out some questions, and from time to time do almost like dress rehearsals and rehearse. But it's really something, sometimes people like to do that stuff on their own. So it all depends on the individual.
Exactly. So, because you are working on the partnerships, and in this case, if you can put some light on it, because I personally believe that partnerships are very good for any business, and these are one of the core essential nowadays. Because obviously everybody cannot do everything, every business cannot do everything. Obviously, they have to make some partnerships, and maybe you can say like strategic partnerships. So, if you can put some light on it, how important these partnerships are and how you are managing this thing.
Yeah. So when you're talking about partnerships, like give me a little bit, like give me an example. Are you talking about like actually working with people to help get new deals and things of that nature?
So yeah, in partnerships, in case of anything, there's a possibility that one company is working on the fulfillment of order.
Getting a referral or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I understand how critical or important those types of things are. I'm actually early on in my business I'll kind of take a step back. I left Forbes. I was working at Forbes for close to a decade, from 2014 to 2024, and I was on the integrated marketing team, which for most people like don't know how a media publisher operates. Integrated marketing is essentially the marketing team that supports the ad sales team with the proposals and the campaign ideas, and then basically sets it in motion where someone else takes it and executes on it. So we were basically the ideas team that would come up with these really cool concepts that leveraged all of the different pieces of the puzzle across Forbes. So we obviously Forbes had the magazine and the website and the events and thought leadership, research reports. And there's a whole number of different things that we can offer in digital advertising, but we would package it all together and come up with these concepts. And I loved it. I loved working there for a really long time. Obviously, I wouldn't have stayed there so long if I didn't. I think a lot changed in just the past couple of years, between the algorithm changes in Google and then AI, and especially coming from a creative person who's coming up with ideas. you almost start to feel like it's like an existential crisis where it's like, oh my God, is AI going to start doing what I do? And it does in a way. I still feel obviously need humans to kind of be there to oversee and to come up with ideas, but also to use AI as a way to basically bring their ideas, flesh them out further. And I could go on forever about that. But ultimately what happened was, Forbes, there's always restructuring and things due to technology and it just but it ended up working out because I feel like I kind of needed to do something different at that stage of my career. And so I started doing Wonderfish. And when I started, I was focused more on marketing and doing everything from like sales decks and websites and trying to figure out like where I could plug in to help out a company. And typically I was speaking with like a B2B, like talking to this one B2B coffee company, had them as a client called Java Bar. And a couple other clients came in, an ad tech company. I was loving what I was doing, helping to do a lot of the early planning and marketing. A lot of what I did at Forbes was just coming up with ideas. How are you going to leverage what you have in your sort of toolbox? And it was going well for a while, but when it came, you're talking about getting new business. When it comes to getting new business, I didn't have like a good offering or a good package that was like an easy offering that I could go and sell to someone. And I started to realize that a lot of the people I was talking to, one of the biggest needs that they had was really in the earned media PR space. So people kept saying, "Oh, you worked at Forbes. How do I get in Forbes?" And I was like, maybe I could start to help people and sort of demystify a little bit. There's a lot of, I guess, scams out there. People are offering I'll get you in Forbes for $49 and this and that. So there's really no shortcuts to this. You have to have a good story. You have to position yourself. It's all about storytelling and pitching. And so I started to leverage some of my contacts in media and, ended up getting access to databases too, because you can't just only go off your own network. You have to have emails and do some cold outreach too. And I started to do PR, and I realized that it's something that I really love because it still has that storytelling, pitching and storytelling. It's the same in marketing and sales and in PR. It all kind of shares a lot of the same characteristics. So to answer your question, I'm really kind of still early in my business, but I've developed a good strategy for bringing on leads, which I could talk about, and how I basically bring in new business. What I would say about partnerships, I probably need to do a better job about that, of figuring out like, hey, and I've tried that a little bit, I haven't gotten too far with it, where you go to someone and say, hey, I see your clients, you're serving the same sort of ICP or audience as me, maybe you can throw me some customers and I'll throw them your way. Like I need to do that sort of thing.
Makes sense. Makes sense. In fact, in strategic partnerships, obviously, it is a win-win situation. And if it is a win-win situation, then obviously it is a good thing. Otherwise, there is nothing out of it. All right. So just to understand more about your business, so who are your ideal customers?
Yeah, so I love working with founders and entrepreneurs. Because that's the type of individual that they really like. They're basically the face of their brand as the founder, leader, CEO. I'm also talking to some, I haven't brought them on board yet, but I've been talking to some VCs as well, but they're also the founder types. But these are individuals that they understand how important thought leadership is. Because especially in this day and age of AI and technology, where you have to figure out what your competitive moat is. And I think a personal brand is one of the strongest moats you can have, especially with everything going on in the world. You think about Taylor Swift, you think about whatever person or celebrity, they are doing such amazing things because they have that brand, and most of them also have really good PR agents too, right? So that's who I love working with. I love helping people develop their brand. I love basically helping people tell their own stories and using podcasts as the medium, because I just feel podcasts right now that I'm very bullish on them in general. Like I've worked in media for close to 20 years. I've seen the growth from early on. At Forbes, we launched our own podcast. One of them, for example, that's still going strong is What's Ahead with Steve Forbes. So we invested a little bit in podcasts, but it wasn't like the number one seller or anything that we're pushing. But you're starting to see podcasts really essentially becoming mainstream media now. I think I saw a stat where more than half, like 55% of Americans are consuming them regularly at age 12 plus. And that's more than other parts of the world. I think globally it's like less, it's like 8% or something. So especially in this country, it's really becoming mainstream. And you kind of have to ask why. Like, what is it about podcasts that people are drawn to? And what I think it is it gives people in this sort of TikTok, reels, 15-second sound bites and all that. I think people actually do really crave that long form content still, right? And that's
Yeah,
why with the Taylor Swift, sorry, I keep talking about Taylor Swift, but she just went on the New Heights podcast and she sat down with them. I think it was like a 2-hour interview, and people, especially her fans, like they never get to hear her do that. I don't remember the last time I don't know if she ever did an interview that long, and she ended up like literally crying. Like she told the story about how she bought back her music, and that's just really what people love about the forum or the platform, that people really open up. They can go into like complex storytelling mode instead of when people go on traditional media. If you were to go on 60 Minutes, I mean, whatever show or you want to say, the news or whatever, they're going to chop that up and basically regurgitate it for whoever is going to be the end user, the listener, the viewer. So that's one of the things that people love, I think, about podcasts. When people start thinking about getting involved from a brand perspective or from business leader, one of the first things they jump to is like, oh, I'm going to start my own podcast. And a lot of people, I was at an event yesterday, a lot of people kept coming up to me and where we were networking, and I would tell them what I do. They're like, wait, so you have your own podcast? And I'm like, no, I borrow. I love the analogy, like what's better than having your own boat? It's having friends with boats. So essentially, like I make friends with podcasters and like borrow their boat, kind of like borrow their audiences. Like they've already invested the time and the money and the resources into like developing their audiences. And so I just use my skills in marketing and sales and everything to pitch people, say like this person would be really good for your audience, but find the ones that have the best audiences first, pitch them, get them on the shows. But I've created a systemized way to do that. And then once they're on the shows, like preparing them for them and then leveraging the content after. So that's the big thing what I do. And so I mentioned like not having an offering initially. I can still do a whole lot of other things. I can still do get people in traditional media, and I'm still, even to this day, doing a little bit of that. But now I feel like I do have a really good, solid offering as far as like a scalable, repeatable thing that I can do for people. And I'm already doing it for, a handful of clients where I'm getting them on depending what they want. There's some that only just want one podcast, but some of them I've gotten them on like 5. I think one person I got on 7 podcasts in a month because they're killing it. Everyone just wants to have them on.
It makes sense. Yes, in fact, today, this is the time when most important thing is your relationships. Where you have, if you have good PR, you will rock in your business, obviously. So this is a great way to connect with others, obviously. But okay, on the other hand, because you are managing the marketing side of your company, so obviously marketing is important for the sales as well. Marketing is directly associated with the sales. So how you're doing the marketing? Like obviously, marketing can be the digital marketing. Marketing can be offline marketing as well. And the word of mouth is one of the biggest thing. And I'm quite fan of it. How you are managing it? Like you are utilizing digital marketing or offline marketing or mix and match?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a great network, especially working at Forbes for so long. So I am leveraging my network and using those warm leads or warm outreach, whatever, to people that I know, and that does work well. But it's not everything. It's probably, to be honest, it's probably only like 10 to 15% of business that I'm getting. So yeah, most of what I'm doing is, so I've created an entire system, and I didn't come up with it myself, to be honest with you. Like I come from the marketing world, but when I was so we were working with giant brands, some of the biggest brands in the world. And so now I'm doing something completely different. I'm trying to work with, these smaller founders. And so it's a different world. And I have a coach. His name's Diego Barrera. He has a company called Unlock the ROI, and he's helped me significantly, where he initially gives you a whole workshop to try to understand exactly who your ideal customer is, your ICP, and then he helps you clarify your offering. So he definitely helped me with a lot of like what I am offering now, which is the whole, I didn't even mention it. It's called the Podcast Power Circuit. So that's one of the things he's always like, give it a cool name. He's kind of like a service designer. So it's called Podcast Power Circuit. So I have this whole offering. And then once you have your offering and everything, your website and everything, I mean, the website is actually like not even the most important thing. The most important thing is just the offering itself. And then it's the whole outreach system. And so, there is some automation as far as like sending connection requests and things of that nature, but it's mostly LinkedIn, where you're starting with like LinkedIn Sales Navigator, where you can basically identify your ideal customer on there, or using the targeting parameters. So you can put in there. So I like to to reach my ideal. So I have an ideal customer, and then I have like a minimum fit. So my ideal
Yeah.
customer is like 11 to 50 employees. Their title is like typically founder. And then I look at like industries. I'm looking at like computer software. I think it's called computer software in LinkedIn. And then I also look at like coaching and consulting, because like coaches and consultants are someone that really needs to go on podcasts. And then what else do I do? I'm focusing on United States, although I do have some UK clients, but it's just easier with time zones and everything. So I am focusing on US. And then there's a couple other parameters you put in there. One of them is like active on LinkedIn, because you want to be reaching out to people that are active on there. And then I also will look at, for my own personal ICP, it's people that have been in their business for 3 to 5 years, because I want them to be a little bit more established, because you can't put in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you can't put revenue. They just don't have that as a target parameter. This is how I'm getting my leads. I know there's other ways you can get leads, whatever. Not to go in the weeds, but like you start with the leads, and then once you basically do the connection request, then I go in on their LinkedIn profile, and I'm literally like trying to find something interesting about them that I want to ask them a question about. Because a lot of people are using AI now to kind of do the personalization, and I don't really like that, because I sometimes feel like it could just be too forced and dishonest, and it's just like, you didn't really get to know me. You don't know me. Like, so yeah, like, and Diego kind of trains us on the whole, like 5 stages of a DM. And one of them is like, I don't remember them all off the top of my head, but it's like, one of them is show me you know me, which is like, basically that's the most important part. One of them is like, give them a compliment, show them you know them. Long story short, it's basically just getting them to talk to you. Once you get them talking, then showing them that you're interested, and then and then sales is all about identifying pains. Like, what are the pains that they have, and can you solve them? So you start to just really ask the questions, like, are you trying to get more visibility? Like, have you tried podcasts? Like, all that sort of stuff. And that's kind of how I approach trying to understand the people that I'm working with. But yeah, what it really comes down to, like, I want to be talking to the people that have a problem that needs to be solved, because I do feel like I'm passionate about what I'm doing, and I know that I can help people. Because I feel like podcast guesting is such an untapped medium. So yeah, that's kind of what I do. But then I have these other tools. Let me just tell you this one quick thing that I love, because I mentioned I use HubSpot for my CRM, but there's something called Surf. It's called RFE. If you're talking with someone on LinkedIn and in the DMs, if you feel like there's someone that like could potentially be a good customer, you could just hit a button and it sends them to your CRM. It's like a sync. About the interoperability where everything works together. So that's what I love about like technology these days, is everything kind of like syncs and works together. Slack and HubSpot and LinkedIn and all that stuff.
I worked on these type of integrations, so yeah, I can understand. Awesome. And by the way, you are using the best mediums to find the serious clients. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Well, I have other ways. I mean, this right now is like, hopefully, to be honest, this is only my 4th podcast, but I'm kind of practicing what I preach. I'm trying to do more of these now, getting on podcasts, getting in front of people, and then hopefully I'll be able to leverage this content eventually, clip it and put it on my LinkedIn and that sort of stuff.
So have you ever talked about your differentiators? Because obviously, in fact, I learned from the podcast. Podcast is one medium for my learning as well. I learned a lot of things from the podcast, and I learned that every business do have competitions, even if it looks like that you don't have any competition, but every business do have competitors. So have you ever thought about anything that sets you apart from the market?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to find as many other podcast people that basically position themselves as podcast booking agencies. There's not a ton. There's definitely at least a handful that are doing it and focusing on it, because I'm also competing with PR agencies in general too, right? Who can get you on podcasts. But the problem with most of working with someone like that or an agency is they tend to be very expensive, and so they tend to be minimum 10,000. I'm not charging anything close to that per month, and that's just the retainer. And then sometimes they also tend to have performance fees, like that's just the retainer, and then it's like, oh, I got you on this show, that costs this much. So, the way that I compete with them is definitely on price, because, I'm much smaller. I'm much, my, I guess, expenses and costs, I'm able to keep in check. And for whatever reason, I'm able to charge less. But it's also because I'm efficient, and I do use a lot of different technology and tools to kind of do my job effectively. But as far as podcast booking agencies, I think where I stand out is that most of them are literally just booking you. And so I have so many added, it's a little bit more of like a premium service, although I'm not necessarily charging like that premium price. And I've talked to people that have actually had podcast agencies in the past, and they're like, yeah, we just book them, and then gave them the link after it was posted, and that was it. I have so much more added benefits as far as, I do really intense research to find the right ones. The prepping is really going above and beyond and making feel comfortable. And I'm almost becoming like a coach, like making people feel confident and, making sure that they're staying on track, like almost like an accountability coach, if you will. So that's another added benefit. And then lastly is the content creation. So I come from the content creation world really at Forbes, and I know what good storytelling is and how to create effective content. And I've created a system for that too. So being able to leverage the podcast is probably the most important thing, because it is important to get on that show and to reach that audience, but it's even more important to leverage it to build your own audience and to build your own pipeline and to put it on your own and operated channels. And so I'm adding all those things on top of just the booking, really.
That makes sense. Completely makes sense. Well, James, thank you so much. At the end, please give us the biggest piece of advice for our audience. And, our audience is, again, the entrepreneurs and the early stage entrepreneurs, especially, and the ones who are planning to start a business.
That's it's always a great question, and I want to give the best advice that I can. I mean, it's not easy out there. Like it's kind of like a war for attention, where you're kind of continuously seeing, there's so much out there as far as noise. I do think leveraging podcasts could be really an effective way to compete and to basically build your own credibility, build your pipeline, build your own audience about consistency. It's like with anything, you have to have discipline and be consistent. And like you could just go and get one article in Forbes or New York Times or whatever, and it will help you, but nothing will help you more than having a consistent practice, doing something regularly. If you did something every day or you did something every week, it just compounds on itself. And in media, that compounding effect is the most important element, because so what you're doing is, like, when you're going on a podcast or when you're getting a piece of press or whatever, you're essentially getting one proof point. But it's also living in eternity for, on the internet, SEO optimized, GEO optimized for the generative engine. So with that, that is why it kind of makes it a little bit more nerve wracking, because you're like, oh my God, this is permanent. But the permanence is a benefit, is if you leverage it effectively, right? So leverage all the optimization that comes with it, and then do it consistently, compounds on itself, so it stacks, right? So it's like you get this one piece of content or this one appearance or interview, then it helps you get more, because like you're basically building your credibility and thought leadership. That's kind of my long-winded piece of advice.
Awesome. That's a beautiful advice for sure. Awesome. Well, James, please let our viewers know how they can reach you if someone wants to.
Sure. You can go to wonderfishpr.com. So it's WONDER fish. So wonderfishpr.com. Also hit me up on LinkedIn, James Colistra, COLISTRA. Pretty much, I think I'm the only James Colistra in the world, which is nice. So
It's cool. Awesome. Well, James, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us today, and I really enjoyed the conversation and learned few new good things. And I wish you for your business.
Thank you, Qasim. It was great to talk to you. I appreciate it. Hope to talk soon.
Likewise. Stay in touch. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Podcasters